Welcome back to my channel, YouTube. Listen, we're gonna hop right in today, all right? You already know who I am, you already know what I'm teaching, but I'm super excited because I've gotten such good feedback on this series. This is the last episode that I'm gonna be teaching, and now next we're gonna get into cooking. I'm so excited to cook. I hope you're getting value out of it. If you are, please subscribe, please turn on those post notifications, and do me a favor, watch the video all the way through. YouTube likes to push videos that actually people watch all the way through, so I think this is really important, and it's a small ask from me to you. PDF version of the Professional Chef is going to be down in the description below. Today, we're going to talk about dry goods, okay? Receiving, storing, and the difference between every single one. I'm going to go over this pretty fast. So it's important that you do your due diligence. And if you have a question on something, either leave it down in the comments or look in the PDF yourself and get the information you need. It's really important. Let's hop right in. Dry goods include a wide range of ingredients that are essential to almost every preparation in any food service operation. They must be chosen, purchased, and stored within the same degree of care as required by fresh meats or produce. In the book, we're going to talk about purchasing and storage real quick, and then we're also going to talk about the difference between grains, meals, and flours, okay? This is so important. If you have a recipe that calls for cake flour and you use bread flour, you have to start over. If a chef asks you to grab semolina flour and you go and you grab cornmeal because you don't know the difference, you are in trouble. So listen up. Purchasing and storage. Dry goods are also referred to as non-perishable goods. However, like perishable goods, these ingredients lose quality over time. Keeping an adequate stock on hand is essential to a smooth running operation, but having too much ties up necessary space and money. Rotating dry goods and observing the rule of first in, first out is just as important for dry goods as it is for more perishable foods. Store dry goods in an area that is dry, properly ventilated, and accessible. All goods should be placed above the floor level on shelving or pallets. Some dry items such as whole grains, nuts and seeds, and coffee, if they're not vacuum packed after the seals are broken, are best stored in the refrigerator or even the freezer. Grains, meals, and flours. This broad category extends from whole grains such as rice and barley and cornmeal and pastry flour. Grains are versatile and universal foods enjoyed worldwide in every cuisine and culture. While they are important sources of nutrition, is also their subtle but satisfying flavors and textures that give them such culinary importance. Wheat and corn are of primary importance in Western countries such as the United States and Canada. Rice is fundamental to many Asian cuisines. In fact, in many Asian languages, the word for rice is the same as that for food. Other cultures rely upon grains such as oats, rye, and buckwheat. Grains are the fruits and seeds of cereal grasses. For the most part, they are inexpensive and readily available and provide valuable and concentrated source of nutrients and fiber. Although grains differ in appearance from other fruits, apples and pears, for example, their structure is quite similar. Whole grains are grains that have not been milled. They tend to have shorter lifespan than milled grains and therefore should be purchased in amounts that can be used relatively for a short period of time, 2 to 3 weeks. Milled grains have been polished. That is, they have the germ, bran, and or hull removed. Although milled grains tend to last longer, some of their nutritive value is lost during that process. Milled grains are also broken into coarse particles, may be referred to as crack. The milling process continues. Meals and cereals, cornmeal, farina, cream of rice are formed. Finally, the grain may be ground into fine powder known as flour. Various methods are used for milling: crushing between metal rollers, grinding between stones, or cutting with steel blades in action similar to a food processor. Stone ground grains may be preferable in some cases because they remain at a lower temperature during the process compared to other types of millings and so retain more of their nutritive value. The following table describes some of the available forms for several grains. Great, so we're gonna hop right in. And in the book, I am on 201. I don't know what that is in the PDF, but just look for the grain section. It's chapter 3. Let's talk about this. We're gonna go over it kind of quickly, so make sure you pay attention. So let's talk about wheat. Wheat, abundant and economical, wheat has been cultivated for thousands of years. It is by far the nutritious of all of the staple grains, containing the greatest amount of protein. Wheat is used in a variety of savory and sweet dishes. It is versatile and flavorful. Wheat berries, LB wheat, raw wheat germ, toasted wheat germ, bulgur, farina flour, wheat bran. Okay, here we go. Wheat flour. Pay attention. Look at this table and jot this down. Wheat flour, when milled into flour, wheat is generally used to produce baked items. Gluten, the substance formed from wheat's proteins, provides elasticity and structure that aids in the development of baked goods, specifically bread. Wheat is classified by season and color as follows: hard red winter wheat, hard white winter wheat, hard red spring wheat, soft red winter wheat, and soft white winter wheat. Durum wheat is a particular type of hard wheat. Winter wheat is planted in the winter and harvested the following summer. Spring wheat is planted in the spring and harvested that summer. Generally, spring wheat produces the hardest flours and winter wheat the softest. Wheat flour, semolina flour, durum flour, cake flour, bread flour, all-purpose flour. Okay, so what you need to take away from this is think about this. There is whole wheat, okay, which is just, the whole wheat berry that's milled, okay? There is cake flour, all-purpose flour, and then there's bread flour. Bread flour has the highest protein amount, okay? Cake flour has the lowest protein amount. All-purpose flour is the mix of the two. That's what you need to know. For bread, you're looking for more gluten. For cake, like a muffin or a cake, for example, less gluten. That's what you need to know. If you don't have any all-purpose flour, you can honestly mix bread flour and cake flour and you will have all-purpose flour. That is the biggest misconception and the most questioned item that people ask me all the time. Can I use this flour instead of this flour? What I recommend is not substituting bread flour for anything, okay? If you're baking a loaf of bread, use bread flour or use what the recipe calls for. You can kind of get away with all-purpose, but you won't develop as much gluten if you use all-purpose over bread flour. But you can't go make a cake with bread flour, okay? It's gonna be too chewy. Very important, take that in consideration. So we're on to the next section. This is gonna be rice. I'm gonna go over this kind of quickly, but if you have any questions, please leave them down below. Rice, a staple food in at least half of the world's communities. Rice is an invaluable and versatile ingredient. The starchy whole grain complements nearly any flavor component with which it's paired. Rice is commercially classified by size, long, medium, and short grain. The two main types of rice are white and brown. White rice is milled, while brown rice is unmilled, resulting in a more nutritious and fiber-packed grain. Brown rice comes with a hull, white rice is hull removed. That's all you need to know. But let's talk about some of these rices because this is very important, especially if you're in a restaurant. There's a huge difference between jasmine rice, basmati rice, and Uncle Ben's. Okay, nothing wrong with Uncle Ben's. Anyway, let's get into it. Parboiled rice, rice flour, cream of rice, carnaroli rice, Spanish rice, Bhutanese rice, converted long grain rice, long grain brown rice, wild rice, basmati rice, popcorn rice, jasmine rice. Okay, so let's talk about this. So carnaroli rice, really important. This is a short grain rice, preferably used for risotto, okay? Parboiled rice, if you're at home, parboiled rice is totally fine. This is a pre-cooked rice that has been pre-hydrated and then dehydrated again, so it makes it cook faster. Spanish rice, also short grain rice, equally as good, but in all honesty, they don't have it here, but my favorite is sushi rice, okay? The reason is I love the short grain, it has a better texture, it's at my absolute favorite. I think what's really important to note is that wild rice and brown rice have way bigger cooking times than white rice. So just keep that in consideration when you are preparing rice. I've seen so many people mess up rice. We're not gonna talk about how to cook rice in this video, but it's just important for you to know the difference between the two, okay? Next, corn. Corn is popular in many cuisines throughout the world in numerous forms. It is often eaten fresh, on and off the cob, or dried and used in the foundation of many byproducts: bourbon, corn oil, cornstarch, cornmeal, and corn syrup. Let's talk about it. Grits, masa harina, cornmeal, blue cornmeal, cornstarch, white cornmeal, and hominy. So what's really important to note here is there's definitely different types of corns for different types of applications, right? All we need to realize here is there's a difference between grits and cornmeal. And honestly, it's the cooking time. Whenever I have to cook grits or if I'm cooking grits, I'm cooking forever, it seems like. So I always go with the instant grits. It just makes it easier, right? Also, as I was growing up as a kid, there was such a big difference between yellow corn and white corn. White corn was more appealing in the culinary world, but in all honesty, I love yellow corn just like I like white corn. There's no difference for me, but a chef I used to work for used to say the yellow corn is for animals. And I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna argue with you there. For me, I prefer the color. I think white corn is amazing, but there's so many different varieties that it's kind of hard to pinpoint one. The hominy is dried kernels soaked in lye to remove the hull and germ. Available canned or dried. Cornmeals are dried kernels ground to fine, medium, or coarse texture. White, yellow, or blue. Variations. Cornstarch. Now, this is important. Cornstarch is big in the culinary world. Dried kernels, hulled and germ removed. Ground to a powder, pure white. This is used as a thickening agent, very common in Asian cuisine, very popular in restaurants to thicken things. Here, I'm gonna leave you some chef's notes on corn and cooking corn. Corn, also known as maize, maize is a grass that is native to the Americas and has been cultivated there for thousands of years. It was introduced to Europe in the 15th century. Today is widely cultivated throughout the world, with the United States producing about 40% of the world's harvest. Corn is grown for use as livestock feed, as a source for biofuel, and human consumption. There are a few basic varieties of corn, which are grown for different uses. Field corn, also known as dent corn, is grown primarily for use of livestock feed, industrial products, and to make processed foods. Flint corn, which is also known as Indian corn, is grown for the same typical uses as field corn. However, it is also best used for popping corn due to its starch content. Flour corn has a kernel that is easy to grind. It can be grown in different colors, but most typically is white. It is the most prevalent variety grown by the Native Americans. Finally, there is sweet corn, which contains more sugars than do other varieties. This is the best variety for eating off the cob. At the same stage of growth, sweet corn will contain more than twice the amount of sugar contained in the field corn. Freshness is most important when buying sweet corn to be eaten off the cob, because approximately 50% of the sugar will convert into starch within the first 24 hours after being picked. Now, this is really important, okay? In California, we have what's called Brentwood corn. Absolutely delicious, but I'll tell you what, it is not as good as the corn from the Midwest. I love Brentwood corn, and I love it so much because I get it harvested within 24 hours of me processing it. It's so delicious, and I love it. Corn season is here, so I'm really excited to do some dishes with the corn, but that's just a food for thought. That is gonna do it. If you've made it this far, I appreciate you, and trust me, it's gonna get better. Next episode, we're gonna talk about soups, sauces, and stocks. This is where we start cooking. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. Make sure you smash the subscribe if you're not subscribed already. Turn on the post notifications, and I'll see y'all next week.